What are a few of the craziest robbery attempts? Let's find out, starting with number 5. Come on over. Gracie Lemke from Florida, of course she's from Florida, found herself in a world of trouble after setting up a guy who was looking for some quality adult time. It all started on Facebook Messenger, where Lemke allegedly worked her charm and made this guy believe he was in for an intimate rendezvous. The poor guy, blinded by the allure of Gracie's looks, decided to meet up with her at what he likely thought was her house. As the guy gets out of his car, Joshua Timmons, who seemingly came out of nowhere and decided to join the party. Timmons restrained the unsuspecting guy while Lemke and her partner in crime, Lauren Locker, took a dive into the man's car to see what they could get. Timmons is a pretty big dude, but somehow the guy managed to break free and made a dash for freedom. As the guy ran off, Timmons pulled out a weapon and let off a round, hitting him in the back. The trio managed to grab the guy's stuff, including his phone, and made an escape in Lemke's car. The cops managed to track down the suspects and discovered a bunch of evidence where Lemke and Timmons had been shacking up. When police arrived, Timmons was burning the clothing he was wearing during the altercation. Police searched the home and found some weapons, some illegal substances, and basically everything else you'd need for selling. Luckily, the victim who got caught up in all of this survived after undergoing some serious medical procedures. Timmons is facing charges and was held without bond. Locker was facing charges of burglary and theft and is also still in jail. Lemke is out on a $20,000 bond, but is facing charges of robbery and burglary. Number 4. Ransacked. Tamara Ecclestone, the daughter of Formula One tycoon Bernie Ecclestone, who lives a life of opulence, had her life take a wild turn. Tamara lived in a mansion worth £70 million in Kensington in the UK. You'd think that place would be as safe as a fortress, right? Wrong. A crew of thieves decided to rob her house, and once they got inside, they went on a rampage, turning the place upside down. They were inside for about an hour until a security guard discovered them. The burglars hightailed it out of there, but took a big score with them. All in all, they made off with over £20 million worth of stolen watches and jewelry. For Tamara, it wasn't just about the money either. The crooks stole a bracelet her husband gave her when their daughter was born, as well as diamond earrings that were a gift from her mom. This wasn't the gang's first robbery, and they're believed to have carried out similar robberies across Europe. They were meticulous planners and scoped out their targets, did recon missions, and even ran drills. They also celebrated like celebrities, and on one occasion treated themselves to a bottle of Cristal champagne and a sushi feast after one of their robberies. But here's a juicy twist. The cops cracked the case in a way you'd never guess. One of these geniuses sent a risque pic to a hotel's after-hours phone. You know, the kind of photo that rhymes with kick flip. Yeah, you heard it right. The move inadvertently exposed their little operation. Cops were struggling to find these burglars, but a Scotland Yard detective decided to ask a receptionist at a budget hotel about guests from mid-December 2019. The receptionist remembered an incident involving a man who had been sending her colleague some inappropriate messages, and she saved his number in her contacts as Weirdo, which is kind of a weird thing to do, but it worked out. The detective traced that number and was able to find the crooks. 3 of the thieves were caught and got some serious jail time for their trouble, but the mastermind, a man named Daniel Vukovic, slipped through the cracks and is probably somewhere in Serbia sipping cocktails. Tamara went on record about how all of this messed with her head. She said she couldn't shake the fear of knowing that one of the burglars was still out there lurking. The whole story is a reminder that all the riches in the world doesn't guarantee peace of mind. Mo money, mo problems. Still, we'd take the money if it's all the same though. Number 3. Teen copycats. A couple of teenagers apparently thought it'd be a good idea to stage their very own version of the Great Train Robbery. You know, that ancient epic holdup from way back in 1963. Back then, there was this legendary heist called the Great Train Robbery. A bunch of guys snagged a whopping £2.6 million, which is, of course, basically a lot more in today's money, from a Royal Mail train in Buckinghamshire. Nearly 60 years later, in the middle of the night, near Lockerbie, Scotland, a Royal Mail all-mail train was chugging along on the West Coast main line, just minding its own business. But these two teens allegedly messed with the signals and were able to sneak onto the train. Well, the police got wind of this and rolled in. Lo and behold, they found the daring duo, a 17-year-old and 18-year-old, just relaxing in one of the train carriages. Apparently, some packages on the train were messed with, but it doesn't sound like their loot matched the original robbery since nothing was actually taken. The British Transport Police swooped in on the scene and took the two into custody. The official word is that they were charged with all sorts of trouble. Can't say these teens aren't getting creative with their extracurricular activities. Apparently, their little escapade caused chaos for a bunch of commuters on top of it. Trains were delayed and canceled left and right. Damage to the signal box meant lines were blocked and passengers were left stuck in their tracks, so to speak. In the end, this crazy attempt at a retro heist ended up causing more headaches than it was worth. Apparently, nothing was taken, but even still, the two young rebels got slapped with charges for messing around with the goods, causing mayhem, and being, well, generally disruptive. It makes you wonder what those darn kids were doing in the train car. Were they actually there to rob it? Or was it just something crazy kids do and later post on the Snappy Chats and their Tiki-Talkers? Number 2. No one pays attention. An upscale jewelry store in the heart of Paris fell victim to a Hollywood-style heist in broad daylight, leaving the city in disbelief. The target was the Piaget store, nestled in an area of the city known for its luxury stores. As shoppers leisurely browsed the store, 3 robbers executed a meticulously planned operation that left everyone stunned. It was a sunny day in Paris. Shoppers were strolling around, soaking in the city's vibes, and in walks our unexpected crew. 2 guys looking sharp in suits, and a lady all dolled up in a dress. But they weren't there for a casual window shopping session. Customers and staff suddenly found themselves staring down the barrel of firearms, and chaos erupted as everyone got hustled to the back of the store. These robbers weren't playing around. They took charge and had everyone lie flat on the floor. The crooks clearly knew that store like the back of their hand and zeroed in on all the good stuff, making one unlucky employee unlock the display windows and even crack open a trunk that held the store's crown jewels. It seems like the crew had every single step planned out and accounted for, like it was a part of a script. When they'd gathered enough bling to make a rapper jealous, they made their escape on foot, melting into the crowd. They hopped on motorbikes to keep the adrenaline rush alive and to vanish into thin air. Luckily, they pulled off this high-stakes caper without so much as a scratch on anyone, further demonstrating how well this crew was prepared. The jewels they snagged weren't exactly pocket change either. They walked out with jewels and gemstones worth an insane £13 million. The Paris prosecutor's office wasn't about to let them just walk away and launched an investigation into the brazen broad daylight heist. Now let's talk about Piaget, the company behind those extravagant watches and gems. Their creations aren't your everyday accessories. We're talking about watches that could cost more than a small car. Piaget is like an A-list celebrity of luxury goods, rubbing shoulders with giants like Cartier, Van Cleef, and Arpels under the Richemont Group. This robbery wasn't the first of its kind in Paris either, as daring heists have become something of a trend there. So, as Paris caught its breath after this heart-stopping escapade, you can bet everyone was doing a double take on their current security measures. At the time of this video, no arrests have been made. Leave it to Paris to class up a basic smash-and-grab style robbery too. In the US, people are just running into stores, smashing stuff, and bouncing. This crew rolled up dressed nicely, controlled everything so no one got hurt, and then left without a fuss. They probably even said please. Number 1. Knock knock. You know how they say, don't mess with Texas? Well, this story, which reminds us of a Western movie, explains why. Imagine a quiet Texas neighborhood where there was a regular guy and 2 wannabe bandits who thought they could outsmart him. They didn't know that Texans aren't known from backing down to anybody. Aaron Contreras and his buddy decided to rob the apartment of Ethan Rodriguez, posing as maintenance workers. They knocked on the door, and the charade began as the 2 workers told Ethan they were there to check the filters on his air conditioner. But Rodriguez wasn't buying it, so he looked at his doorbell camera app, told them nobody was home, and it seemed like they left. But Contreras Contreras wasn't one to take no for an answer, so he came back, and this time he was packing heat. He also brought a masked friend, and the two were no longer knocking. They started kicking, trying to break the door down. But Rodriguez wasn't about to let these two clowns in his home. He had his own firearm, and after seeing that Contreras was armed, he wasn't afraid to use it. The weapons were discharged, and the doorbell camera captured it all. Rodriguez sent a total of 13 rounds, turning his front door into a slice of Swiss cheese. Thankfully, Rodriguez's wife and 7-month-old baby were not home, nor were his neighbors. Rodriguez's quick thinking stopped the bad guys in their tracks, sending both men scurrying away, one of them sending 2 rounds back at the door. Contreras was arrested later that day and hauled away by the cops. He was charged and hit with various charges. As for his masked friend, as of this video's release, the police are still searching for him. This story just goes to show that if you're doing crimes in a place as universally armed as Texas, you're doing so at your own risk. What are some of the most daring robberies people actually try? Let's get right to it with number 5, criminal fashion. A Manhattan bank robber became notorious when he carried out his heists dressed in the designer brand Burberry, earning himself the nickname Burberry Bandit. Cornell Neely wore his designer clothing during at least 2 of his 14 believed heists that he conducted in April 2012. He stole over $8,500 while looking good. Neely put the money he made from the heist towards more expensive clothes, buying more Burberry shirts and a pair of sneakers costing $400. The cash was to help support Neely's shopping addiction. Neely would enter a bank and hand a note to the teller that demanded cash in bills of $50 and $100. It was likely sprayed with cologne, since Neely has an image to maintain. Neely became nervous after entering a Bank of America in Midtown Manhattan on at least one occasion and left empty-handed. Later that day, he held up a Chase branch near Columbia University and left with $500. Neely dressed casually for a crime wave he committed on April 11, 2012, where he stole $2,320 from a Midtown sovereign bank. It took him a month before he struck again, this time at an HSBC where he swiped $724. He took $400 from an Atlantic branch 6 days later. Neely's stealing sprees across Manhattan made him notorious in the area. After months of not being caught, police finally arrested him and charged him with 14 bank heists. In 2014, Neely received a 5 to 10-year prison sentence and was released in December 2019. However, it appeared that he hadn't learned his lesson. Between late June 2019 and July 10, 2019, he robbed or attempted to rob 9 more Manhattan banks. On July 3, 2019, he tried to hold up a bank on Park Avenue, but he left empty-handed shortly after handing the teller a note. Later that day, he went to a bank on 9th Avenue where he left with $1,000. There was no stopping the Burberry Bandit, except maybe a sale at Nordstrom's. Neely went on another spree between January 4 and February 29, 2020. During that time, he attempted to rob 3 more banks, stealing another $3,000. Federal authorities arrested Neely in January 2021, ending his fantastically dressed reign of terror. Shortly after, Neely was handed a 13-count indictment for his robbery spree. In his hearing in Manhattan federal court, Neely alleged that his actions resulted from mental illness and drug addiction. Judge Valerie Caproni acknowledged that his crimes weren't performed out of maliciousness, but were the actions of someone that needed help, but also more clothes. Judge Valerie could empathize. Neely apologized to those he scared during his heists and sent a letter to Caproni before the sentencing, arguing that more prison time wouldn't help rehabilitate him. He argued that there were fewer good people than bad ones in jail and that he learned better ways to steal from those around him when he was in prison. The argument didn't fly, however, and Neely pleaded guilty and received a 26-month prison sentence and 5 years of supervised release. The biggest punishment for him was probably the crappy prison outfits. Number 4. Inside Man. Two security firm employees helped stage an elaborate robbery close to London's Heathrow Airport where they stole millions of pounds from one of the company's cash and transit vans. Mohammed Sadiq and Ranjiv Singh worked for Loomis when they executed the hijacking. Sadiq drove the van and Singh accompanied him as a security guard. They were transporting $8.42 million on behalf of Credit Suisse when they stopped to go to the restroom. Later, they claimed that Singh was still in the bathroom when the van drove away. Sadiq turned up hours later in a ditch with his hands tied behind his back and his feet tied together, claiming that all the money was gone. However, investigators were immediately suspicious of their story. In their opinion, Singh's behavior was far too casual for a man who was just hijacked and left in a ditch. We would have just accepted it. Oh, he's calm. Maybe he really likes being in ditches. That's probably why law enforcement stopped calling us for consults on tough cases. Well, looks like everyone at this mansion has an airtight alibi. The guy must have just tripped 47 times on a knife when the power went out. What a strange accident. Having spent 20 minutes in the bathroom, why is this called out as a long time? He went outside for a cigarette before letting co-workers in another van at the rest stop know that his truck was gone. The delay in reporting the event meant that the security firm's control center couldn't immobilize the vehicle to stop the raid. By the time they knew that the van had disappeared, someone had moved 28 bags of cash from one security van to a second vehicle parked on a quiet, secluded street. When Sadiq first spoke to the police, he told them that an unknown man had contacted him at his home. In the typical fashion of strangers suddenly appearing at your house to coerce you into committing crimes, the man threatened to set Sadiq's house on fire if he didn't participate in a plan to steal from one of Loomis's trucks. The officer was probably rolling his eyes during the story like, oh god, this again, another burning down your house threat. But investigators uncovered several pieces of evidence that showed what the pair were actually doing that day. Security camera footage caught Singh's cigarette break, where he waited at least 15 minutes before letting anyone know that the van was missing. According to Sadiq's cell phone data, he was also in contact with his co-conspirators the day of the robbery and was directly involved in it. Further, Singh said he didn't have a phone on him that day, despite having one in his jacket pocket that he used to speak to Sadiq while in the restroom. He threw away the phone's SIM card when he arrived at the police station, which authorities then discovered and used to identify other gang members. After a 2-week trial, the court convicted Singh and Sadiq of conspiracy to steal. Their ringleader was a man named Rafat Hussain, who ran the operation and helped launder the money. His wife also participated in the fake heist. Both admitted to their involvement in the operation, which included money laundering, conspiracy to money launder, and conspiracy to commit burglary. Another member, Gary Karad, admitted to conspiracy to commit burglary in relation to the heist. The robbery was one of the biggest fake heists in the UK, and the money was never recovered. Number 3. Menos por favor? Florida man Sandy Hawkins entered his local Wells Fargo and handed the teller a note demanding $1,100. When the teller asked Hawkins for his debit card, he responded that it was a robbery and he was armed. He watched the bank teller count out $2,000, which he said was too much, and specified in his note that he hoped to be caught. Once he had the correct amount, he left the Wells Fargo Boca Raton branch. The manager at one of his favorite sports bars identified Hawkins and helped lead Palm Beach County Sheriff deputies to his home. He confessed to the crime upon their arrival. Hawkins had lost everything. His mother and siblings had passed away, but the most devastating blow came when his wife died. At the time of the robbery, he only had $38 left, and his car had been recently repossessed. Hawkins was represented in court by public defender Carrie Howitt, who asked for leniency as Hawkins had no criminal history and no living relatives. Those that knew him claimed that he was likely driven to the edge by grief, having found himself in a situation where he had barely enough money to live off and had lost everyone in his support system. Rather than jail time, Howitt fought for him to stay in a sober living facility in Delray Beach, which would be covered by grant money from the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation. The foundation helps reduce jail populations in Palm Beach County. Those eligible for this type of benefit are people in need of mental health care, homeless people, and people living in poverty. Howitt's goal was to put Hawkins in a position where he could get back on his feet. She also hoped to set him up with a grief counselor. Circuit Judge Jeffrey Gillen agreed to release him to the facility. A condition of the release was that he would be put on a monitor. Hopefully, Hawkins is doing a little better. Number 2. The phone plan. Inmate Arthur Cofield Jr., who was locked up in a Georgia maximum security prison, allegedly stole $11 million from a billionaire movie mogul while behind bars. Despite being locked inside the Georgia Department of Corrections Special Management Unit, Arthur Lee Cofield Jr. took millions of dollars from at least one billionaire's account by pretending to be them while Arthur was on the phone with their bank. Cofield was serving a 14-year sentence for armed robbery when he allegedly impersonated movie mogul Sidney Kimmel. Sidney Kimmel is the CEO and chairman of the Los Angeles-based entertainment company Sidney Kimmel Entertainment. The company is responsible for misleadingly titled blockbusters like Crazy Rich Asians. Spoiler, they were not actually crazy. Everyone survives. Moneyball, no giant balls of money made out of money running over people. And Hell or High Water, the water wasn't high, and there were many other choices. Sidney Kimmel Entertainment was financially backed over 40 feature films. Kimmel is worth around $1.5 billion and began his career when he founded Jones New York, an apparel company that he sold for $2.2 billion. In recent years, Kimmel's focused both on filmmaking and his philanthropic endeavors. The Johns Hopkins University Cancer Center was named after him, as well as the medical school at Philadelphia's Thomas Jefferson University. Cofield spoke to customer service representatives at Charles Schwab, where he impersonated Kimmel. He arranged $11 million to buy 6,106 American Eagle 1-ounce gold coins from a company in Idaho. From there, Cofield allegedly used some coins to buy a $4.4 million house and had a private plane transport the rest to Atlanta. Investigators were unsure as to why Cofield targeted Kimmel, although it seemed that there were other billionaires that interested Cofield as well. Authorities believe Cofield is responsible for other thefts, including potentially accessing an account belonging to Nicole Wertheim, who was married to Florida billionaire Herbert Wertheim. Allegedly, he turned $2.25 million into gold coins as he did with Kimmel's money. Cofield maintained his presence in the outside world using contraband cell phones. Guards found him with cell phones at least 12 times while serving at 5 different prisons. You can't get the cell phones away from the kids these days, am I right? On one occasion, officers conducting a shakedown found a cell phone concealed on Cofield's body. He had cell phone junk, if you will. Authorities believe Cofield was paying off correctional officers to turn a blind eye to his possession and usage of the banned cell phones, but couldn't prove it. However, it was clear that someone was helping him get the phones. The Georgia Department of Corrections often deals with prisoners obtaining cell phones. Inmates use creative methods to get phones, including using drones to drop them into the yard. Cell phones have many purposes for inmates, ranging from communicating with family and loved ones to being used to maintaining a connection to the outside world. For Cofield, his cell phone was his lifeline to carrying out his crimes from inside his cell. In the fiscal year of 2022, over 5,600 cell phones were confiscated from inmates. Cofield gained access to Kimmel's Charles Schwab account when he called the bank pretending to be the billionaire. He used the app Text Now, which made it appear that he was calling from a Los Angeles number rather than a Georgia one. Cofield opened a new checking account in Kimmel's name. When the representative asked him for a utility bill and form of ID, Cofield sent over a photo of Kimmel's driver's license and a copy of his water bill. How he got access to that information, we don't know. But how can you not be impressed? Kimmel's license. Once the account was opened, Cofield allegedly contacted Money Metals Exchange, a company in Idaho that deals with precious metals. He then organized the purchase of the gold coins. To wire money to Money Metals Exchange, Cofield gave Schwab a reimbursement request and a forged letter of authorization from Kimmel. He organized a private plane to bring the coins to Atlanta and arranged a security detail for the transaction. At least 2 others were involved in the scheme, Eldridge Bennett and his daughter, Aliyah Bennett. Authorities allege that Eldridge met the plane when it touched down at Atlanta's Signature Airport, where he collected the coins. Aliyah was likely responsible for finding the house Cofield purchased. At the time, the house, situated on Randall Mill, wasn't even for sale due to being under construction. Aliyah posed as Cofield's wife and convinced the owner to sell her the home for $4.4 million to Cofield under the name Archie Lee. They paid the majority of the roughly $500,000 down payment in cash. During closing, Eldridge took the money in duffel bags to a branch of Cadence Bank located in Alpharetta. Everyone that dealt with Archie seemed to have a strange feeling about him. He'd only meet people on the phone and go weeks without communicating, then reappear and give an excuse excuse for not being available, like claiming he was out of the country. Cofield told the original Randall Mill homeowner that he was a talent scout for rap artists trying to make it in the music industry. Supposedly, his role required him to have large amounts of cash on hand. He claimed that he made his money by investing in Bitcoin. Sidney Kimmel didn't suffer financially from the ordeal. Thank heavens. We don't know what we would do if Kimmel suffered any sort of financial loss, so he was ultimately not the victim. Kimmel actually slept peacefully, unaware that he had some chump change stolen, like the precious angel he is. Charles Schwab reimbursed Kimmel for the total amount stolen, as is their policy in cases of unauthorized activity. Once the suspected fraudulent activity was on their radar, they launched an official investigation and ensured their client's account was protected. They also notified the authorities. Federal agents uncovered Cofield's criminal activities in 2020 and charged him with conspiracy to commit bank fraud and money laundering. They believed he likely orchestrated many similar thefts from billionaires' accounts, but the theory hadn't been proven as of October 2022. The theft was likely not the only crime Cofield committed behind bars. As of October 2022, he was facing charges of attempted murder following accusations that he ordered the murder of one of his romantic rivals. Eldridge and Elia Bennett also faced charges for their roles in the scheme. The house became subject to forfeiture and sale by the government. Number 1. Facebook Confessions. A London-based gang of 8 men stole expensive luxury cars from some of the wealthiest residents in the city. They stole Range Rovers, Porsches, BMWs, and a Mercedes worth $120,000. In addition, they took phones, laptops, and jewelry in at least 15 different robberies. The group couldn't keep quiet about their newfound wealth and took to social media to brag about it. How else are people going to know that you've been stealing expensive cars unless you're telling everyone online, you know? One member took a picture of himself holding a stack of cash between 2 slices of bread, showing off a cash sandwich. The joke is on him, though. You can only get coins back if you eat them. Unfortunately, we lost all of our rent money learning that little lesson. Another member posed with a huge pile of 20 and 50-pound notes worth $24 and $60 each. 2 of the gang members also took pictures with the stolen Mercedes. Police obtained video footage from their phones where they raced the cars they stole and messages they sent one another to arrange the burglaries, leading directly to their arrest. Between April and September 2012, the group broke into homes in Kensington, Notting Hill, and Kensale Green, where they stole at least 9 cars, jewelry, and electronic goods. They targeted houses with valuable cars and often broke into the homes just to get the keys. Kalen Williamson, the ringleader, had pictures on his phone where he held 3 keys from stolen vehicles. In another photo, he was sitting on a Porsche 911 that was reported stolen by its owner. Video footage of him running from officers and accidentally dropping the key to a stolen Land Rover was used as evidence in court. Out of everything they stole, the main trophy was the $120,000 white Mercedes. Police returned the vehicle to its owner, but the gang kept the key. They tried to steal it again, but discovered it had been reprogrammed. The owner caught them on his home surveillance camera and chased the thieves away. On another occasion, the gang had to flee the scene after attempting to steal a Maserati and a laptop after the owner confronted them midway through the robbery. The group all pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit a dwelling house burglary in court, with the exception of Rory Mason, who claimed to have nothing to do with the robberies. However, a jury found the whole group guilty. Their prison sentences ranged from almost 5 years to 3 years and 10 months. Williamson's sentence was 4 years and 8 months after being the brains behind most of the operation. Don't you hate it when you're expecting a package, but somehow one of these porch pirates comes along? Let's find out about a few of the worst of them, starting with number 13, the Model Thief. Kelly Russell, a model and bartender in Dallas, found herself at the center of a scandal when her neighbors identified her as the suspect behind a string of front porch package thefts. The incident unfolded when surveillance videos of the thefts began circulating online, leading to Russell's identification by those living in her apartment complex. Authorities acted swiftly and arrested Russell on Thursday night for various traffic violations. Subsequently, a search warrant was obtained for her apartment, where a staggering number of stolen packages were discovered. Reports indicate that the trunks and back seats of 2 police cruisers were filled with the confiscated items, highlighting the extent of Russell's alleged pilfering. Russell's neighbors had no trouble recognizing her in the surveillance footage, as she was a familiar face in the community. They recalled her frequently discarding numerous packaging boxes, often resorting to the neighboring dumpster when their own building's dumpster was full. Despite her own involvement in package thefts, neighbors ironically kept an eye on Russell's deliveries to ensure they weren't stolen themselves. In an unrelated incident, Russell had previously created a GoFundMe page seeking assistance in purchasing a car. She explained the financial struggle she faced due to medical bills not covered by her insurance. The fundraising effort garnered $330 before the page was closed. Hey, now she can be a model prisoner. Number 12. FedEx wants to compete with Amazon. 4 Louisiana FedEx employees were arrested for stealing more than $13,000 worth of electronic equipment from packages. The men, who were all residents of New Orleans, worked as package handlers at the FedEx shipping center in Kenner. They were arrested on charges of theft valued at over $1,500, and authorities recovered stolen property amounting to $13,428. The investigation started after an anonymous tipster reported the thefts. Following the tip, an internal investigation was conducted, revealing a pattern of phones, watches, and other electronic devices being stolen from packages at the facility. When confronted, all 4 employees admitted to the thefts and handed over the stolen items, including cell phones and smartwatches, which they were carrying. The stolen equipment, valued at more than $13,000, shows the extent of their activities. The 4 individuals were held at the Jefferson Parish Correctional Center, where they awaited further legal proceedings. Horrible delivery service, and they steal? Number 11. Pants down, package gone. In Colorado Springs, a Porch pirate attempted to steal an Amazon package. Caught on a security camera, the footage captured the thief arriving and snatching a box from the porch. However, as he escaped, his pants fell all the way down to his ankles, threatening to expose him to the world. As he left, items spilled out of his backpack onto the driveway, further adding to his escapade. The stolen items included clothes, a birthday gift for the homeowner, and a Christmas gift from his parents for his son. Although initially angry, the homeowner couldn't help but feel some sympathy for the thief, realizing that his life was likely not going well. He filed a police report, although he realized that the chances of anything coming from it were slim. In the meantime, he planned to share the video footage with the mail carrier and UPS driver in the area, hoping to raise awareness and prevent further incidents. The guy was probably hoping the package had a belt. Number 10. The Remorseful Thief. Leslie Miller, a resident of Indianapolis, experienced a strange incident when a package she was expecting was stolen from her mailbox. However, the following day she discovered an envelope containing $20 and a note apologizing for the theft. While Miller appreciated the remorse shown by the thief, she remained frustrated about the stolen leggings she had searched for. The money left behind, though a kind gesture, couldn't fully compensate for the fact that someone had robbed her. Miller expressed her hope that sharing her story would lead to the identification of the thief. She believed that wearing the distinctive leggings would draw attention. Why not just bring the leggings back instead? Does the thief and victim share the exact same legging size? Number 9. The Bait Package. An Amazon delivery driver in Aloha, Oregon, was arrested after delivering a package and stealing it from a Porch. Perez Johnson, 29, was taken into custody when he took the tagged boxes that were fitted with GPS devices. The Washington County Sheriff's Office had also equipped the package with an alarm, which immediately alerted deputies when it was snatched from the porch. Remarkably, Johnson admitted to taking the bait after delivering a legitimate package to the same address. Upon tracking the GPS signal, deputies discovered the stolen package and 18 other Amazon packages inside Johnson's personal vehicle. The deputies personally returned the confiscated packages to their intended recipients. Johnson was subsequently arrested and booked into the Washington County Jail on charges of second-degree theft. This incident highlights the effectiveness of the theft protection program implemented by the Sheriff's Office, which has seen an increase in the number of bait packages deployed due to its success. It sounds like the effectiveness of these GPS-equipped packages isn't debatable. Number 8. Strolling around. A package thief in San Francisco devised a clever disguise while stealing a delivery from a doorstep. The incident unfolded in the Bernal Heights neighborhood, where the homeowner noticed his package was missing after it failed to be delivered over the weekend. Upon reviewing the footage, he discovered that the thief had posed as a mother out for a walk with her child in a stroller. However, a closer look revealed an unexpected twist. The supposed baby was actually a dog. The owner's wife expressed disappointment, mentioning that the presence of the stroller had initially dissipated any suspicion. The couple had installed security cameras due to the rising incidence of theft in her neighborhood. The thief, dressed in a white dress, dark jacket, and a floppy pink hat, was seen placing the stolen package underneath the stroller carriage before swiftly making her escape. The package contained souvenirs intended for a relative visiting from Lithuania, making the theft all that more disheartening. Maybe she should get credit for some sort of bring your dog to work day kind of thing. Number 7. Way too soon. An incident unfolded in Upland, California, when a man attempted to steal his neighbor's package by resorting to a sneaky disguise. The incident was captured on a Ring doorbell camera, and the footage shows the man and his dog returning from a walk with his eyes fixated on the unattended package outside the neighbor's front door. Despite noticing the camera recording the encounter, he decides to proceed with the theft. Momentarily, he disappears behind a wall and emerges with his t-shirt pulled over his face as a makeshift mask. With his dog still on a leash, he snatches the package and hastily retreats to his own apartment. The neighbor, upon discovering the theft, reported the incident to the cops and contacted the leasing office, calling for disciplinary action against the perpetrator. The man now faces the possibility of eviction. You have to wonder why he thought that would work. Like, someone is going to be like, that dog looks really familiar, but without seeing the guy's face, we can't know for sure who he is. Number 6. The thank you note. A Minnesota woman named Hillary Von Smith was shocked when she returned home to find her Amazon package missing from her front porch. Instead of the package, she discovered a handwritten note left behind by the thief who had stolen it. The note read, "So just a quick little thank you for leaving me the opportunity of stealing your package. Very nice of you. Thank you, the new owner of your package." Understandably, Von Smith was angered and confused by the audacity of the thief's note. While she appreciated the irony of receiving a well-crafted thank you note for a stolen package, she decided not to report it to the police since Amazon had already agreed to refund her payment for the stolen item, which was a phone charger she had purchased for her boss. After discovering the note, Von Smith chose to share it on a nearby Facebook group, which garnered significant attention and generated numerous responses from worried community members. Among those who engaged in the conversation was a woman affiliated with the police fraud department who informed Von Smith about the possibility of fingerprint testing on the note. Intrigued by the possibility of identifying the thief, Von Smith had the note placed in a protective plastic sheet and handed it over to the police for forensic analysis. Call us crazy, but we suspect that note was a little less than sincere. Number 5. The worst pirate. A shocking incident unfolded in Winter Haven, Florida, when Marilyn DeBauer stole a UPS package containing $70 worth of boots from a residential porch. Richard Lewis, the homeowner, attempted to intervene and stop the theft, but DeBauer, accompanied by her boyfriend Ray Spiker, allegedly accelerated her getaway SUV and struck Lewis, leaving him fighting for his life. The scene was witnessed by Lewis's wife and mother, who watched in horror as he was hit by the car. The witnesses immediately dialed 911, pleading for an ambulance, while expressing disbelief at the reckless act. Lewis suffered serious injuries, including bleeding in his brain and nearly losing one of his legs. DeBoer has an extensive rap sheet with at least 100 prior arrests, but once police arrested the pair, her boyfriend rolled and gave a full confession to the police, agreeing to be a witness against her. DeBoer faced charges of attempted murder, burglary, and petty theft. Well, that escalated quickly, didn't it? She went from stealing a package to running over a guy in front of his family? Number 4. Building materials. An Amazon delivery driver was caught stealing building materials from a house shortly after delivering a package. The shocking footage showed the driver dropping off a small package on the doorstep and then returning less than a minute later to steal 2 levels and a pack of bolts. The victim, an electrician who was carrying out renovations on his home, was stunned when he watched the footage of the brazen daylight robbery. He reported the theft to Amazon, who instructed him to fill out a form. However, the victim insisted that they contact the driver to return the stolen items, and when they refused, he reported the incident to the police. In response to the incident, Amazon apologized to the victim and offered to refund him the cost of the stolen goods, which amounted to £100. Additionally, as a gesture of goodwill, they sent him a hamper. The victim expressed concern about the trustworthiness of the driver, emphasizing that if he was stealing from him, he might be doing the same to others without surveillance. Amazon assured the victim that the delivery associate involved would no longer be delivering on behalf of the company. And it doesn't sound like this guy was on the level. Number 3. It's a redelivery. Jason Moan, a UPS driver working as a contractor, was caught on surveillance video stealing a newly delivered iPhone from a Florida home just 2 hours after delivering it. The Pinellas County Sheriff's Office identified Moan as the culprit behind the theft. The iPhone, valued at $1,000, was intended to be a Christmas gift for a friend of the recipient, Jovita Acute Parker. The surveillance footage from Acute Parker's home showed Moan delivering the package on time. However, another clip captured Moan still wearing the same clothes, picking up the package and concealing it under his clothing. The video showed him quickly fleeing into the darkness. When Jovita and her sister watched the footage, they were shocked to witness Moan stealing the package. Moan's supervisor discovered the stolen iPhone in his personal belongings at work the following day, and he was promptly fired from UPS. Okay, so maybe UPS has some problems too. Number 2, a Yodel theft. A Yodel delivery driver has been arrested on suspicion of stealing a package, adding to the list of delivery-related thefts. Yodel is a delivery service company based in Liverpool, England. In this incident, the driver was caught on a doorbell camera, allegedly stealing a pair of designer shoes worth £250. The footage captured the driver approaching the house, carrying the package, but instead of delivering it, he signed for the package himself and then took it back to his white van. The video showed the driver placing the package into the passenger side door of his vehicle. The victim, Ron Rasburn, had been anticipating the delivery of the shoes, but was shocked to see the video footage. The package, intended for his wife, contained the shoes as well as some new clothes for her birthday. Ron reported it to the police, leading to the arrest of the Yodel driver. Obviously, the incident highlights the importance of maintaining trust and integrity within the delivery industry. Yodel has expressed their apologies for the incident and is taking action regarding the individual involved. They are working with the retailer to replace the stolen order and have promised to send a gift as an apology for the inconvenience caused. It was his wife's shoes and clothes? You know, the guy just forgot her birthday and scapegoated the delivery driver. We'll just put that in our little list of excuses too. Number 1, the father-daughter crime spree. A man in Maryland was caught by police after his 5-year-old daughter was shown stealing a package on video. Gary Martin Smith faced multiple charges, including theft, conspiracy to commit theft, contributing to the delinquency of a minor, and 4th-degree burglary. The incident occurred in Bel Air, where Smith allegedly told his younger daughter to snatch the package from a porch. After the footage was released by the Harford County Sheriff's Office, an anonymous tip identified the girl, leading to a warrant being issued for Smith's arrest. The CCTV footage shows the girl sprinting across the lawn, stopping to talk to someone on the street, and then picking up the package before running back. The incident has sparked outrage in the community, with the Sheriff's Office condemning the use of a child in this manner and urging residents to be vigilant and report suspicious activities. The video, shared on social media, has garnered significant attention and has been viewed over 35,000 times, with many expressing sadness and concern over the actions of the parents involved. Maybe the guy should get some credit for a bring your daughter to work day kind of thing. What are the craziest robberies people will do? Let's get started with number 5, only TikToking away. Yulissa Mendoza, a popular Mexican TikTok star with 1.4 million followers, has found herself at the center of a controversy after a brazen jewelry heist took place at the upscale Burger jewelry store in Mexico City's Antara shopping center. The crime involved 4 armed robbers who shattered windows with mallets and made away with a bunch of watches worth nearly $100,000. Yulissa Mendoza herself wasn't directly implicated in the heist, but her association with the prime suspect, Marco N., did create some problems. The police caught up to Marco the day after the robbery, arresting him in a luxury van, which was believed to be the getaway vehicle. Inside the van, authorities discovered not only the stolen watches, but also mallets, axes, a significant quantity of nose beers, a 9mm, and an overrated TikTok star. The discovery made it a little difficult for Mendoza to claim innocence, so she was arrested with everyone else. Nevertheless, Mendoza insisted that her involvement was limited to her romantic relationship with the alleged mastermind, who was only identified as Marco N. Mendoza's TikTok followers, as well as her Instagram audience of over 165,000, organized support campaigns carrying banners and slogans that assumed her innocence. And even though she also says she's innocent, riding in a van with a dude that just robbed a place and who left everything in the van that he used to do the robbery, led her to getting accused of concealment by reception. During the investigation, Mendoza was held for 2 months at the recommendation of a judge dealing with the case. This brought out some weirdly dedicated followers who chanted outside the women's prison, condemning what they perceived to be a violation of human rights. Marco N. was charged, and Mendoza's account has been dark since her detainment. At the time of this video, she has yet to be charged. It's kind of weird that we're in this new age of celebrity where someone can get so famous on a platform like TikTok that their fans will group outside of a prison to protest. But she's so good at lip syncing, there's no way she could be involved in a robbery. You believe she's actually singing when you watch her, like an innocent person. Number 4, the slowest theft. A trio of hefty female shoplifters orchestrated a heist at a Burlington store in Sacramento, California. The perpetrators were caught on camera making a slow-motion getaway with shopping carts laden with stolen merchandise. As alarms blared in the background, a bystander videoed the incident and can be heard drawing attention to the shoplifters. The footage showed the 3 women lumbering across the parking lot, gluttonous carts overflowing with pilfered clothing and shoes like a herd of mastodons trudging across the Arctic tundra. The criminals loaded the stolen goods into the trunk of a red Dodge Charger, completely unfazed by the fact that everyone was well aware of their thievery. The location targeted by the shoplifters, a Burlington store, served as another example of the growing concern around organized retail crime. These perpetrators blatantly walked out the front of the building without any sense of urgency, suggesting a level of disrespect that reflects a growing trend. The video taken by the witness got the getaway driver's face and the license plate of the car, so they're not getting away. But from the footage, it doesn't look like they care. The incident shows the increasing challenges faced by retailers due to a surge in organized shoplifting incidents carried out by criminal groups. These crimes, often executed with varying degrees of sophistication, have led to a significant rise in what the retail industry refers to as shrinkage. Encompassing losses from theft, fraud, and employer. This particular heist serves as a reminder of the growing problem not only for this specific retailer, but for the retail industry at large. The National Retail Federation reported that shrinkage cost retailers a staggering $94.5 billion in 2021, up from $90.8 billion the previous year. The Sacramento Police Department has confirmed its active investigation into the incident. We're not entirely sure how much of an investigation there will actually be, since everything was caught on camera. There probably won't be much of a foot chase if they decide to run. Number 3, dressing up. Andrew Bluck, Adam Merkitt, and Tanya Docks orchestrated a series of crimes that involved impersonating police officers, kidnapping, and robbing delivery drivers. In one instance, the crew approached a delivery driver claiming to be undercover officers investigating a suspicious package in the van. After forcing their way into the vehicle alongside the driver, they drove to a remote location where Docks joined them in her silver Seat Leon, which is basically a Volkswagen Golf. While dressed in pretty good police costumes, the trio loaded thousands of pounds worth of stolen goods, including TVs and smartphones, into the car before leaving the driver stranded without his van. The car driven by Docks was used as the getaway vehicle for their stolen loot. Docks attempted to distance herself from the crimes by saying she was asleep in her car during the robberies, but evidence later revealed her active involvement in driving the vehicle and participating in the robberies. The stolen items included TVs, smartphones, and other electronics, representing a significant haul for the group. In a subsequent robbery, just 2 days after the first incident, Bluck and Merkitt targeted another delivery driver in a nearby area. Again, posing as police officers, they followed the driver from a depot and commandeered the vehicle, stealing thousands of pounds worth of goods. The pair escalated their criminal activities even further by engaging in an axe robbery, where they targeted a convenience store, stealing 4,000 pounds. Bluck and Merkitt were ultimately arrested and sentenced for their roles in the crimes. Bluck received a 9-year and 7-month prison sentence, while Merkitt was handed a 9-year term. Docks, who initially denied her involvement and claimed to be asleep during the robberies, was found guilty and sentenced to 2 years, 6 months in prison. Number 2, just doing their job. Rachel Dimitro and Bob Eli orchestrated a series of burglaries that targeted vulnerable victims in Florida. The pair posed as utility workers while they burgled houses as the victims stood out front. Dimitro and Eli's crimes mainly targeted the elderly, exploiting their trust and further emphasizing the fact that they have no conscience. The preferred method involved Dimitro and her accomplice approaching their victims under the guise of being Florida Power and Light employees. They would lull the victims into a false sense of security, manipulating their way into the victims' homes. Once inside, one would distract the homeowners with conversation, diverting their attention from the theft happening right behind them. During these distractions, the thieves would pilfer valuable possessions like jewelry and cash from the unsuspecting victims. Many of these stolen items had immense sentimental value, such as a charm bracelet from 1961 and a pocket watch, making the losses all the more devastating for the victims. Both Dimitro and Eli were eventually arrested for their involvement in these robberies. When Dimitro was caught, she was wearing some of the stolen jewelry, which doesn't seem like a good idea, but we also just have a thing about wearing evidence of crimes in public. That just isn't a great idea, you know? Eli was arrested, but official charges against him were not made public. However, Dimitro faced charges that included burglary, grand theft, and violating probation. The victims, who were already vulnerable due to their age, have had to endure the trauma of being deceived and robbed in their own homes. Fortunately, a lot of sentimental items were recovered. Number 1. The worst time to leave. In a heart-wrenching incident that unfolded in Queens, New York, Yuchi Lin, a 79-year-old woman, became the unintended victim of a brazen jewelry heist. Yuchi Lin, in her advanced age, found herself caught in the crosshairs of a robbery when two thieves stormed into Diamond Collect, a jewelry store in Queens. Lin was minding the store while her daughter, Eva Chen, briefly stepped out when the criminals targeted her during their $500,000 heist. One of the assailants pretended to be an Amazon delivery man, dropping off a package outside the store's entrance. Lin thought the delivery man had left, but he was actually hiding around the corner, waiting for her to open the door. Eventually, Lin did open the door to grab the package, and in that instant, the guy lunged at her, easily overpowering her attempts to shut it again. Things continued to escalate as the robbers then forced their way into the store, battering Lin in the process. For some reason, these guys thought they needed a firearm to control a nearly 80-year-old woman they'd already overpowered. So they pointed the weapon at her head and demanded that she empty the store safe. Lin, not really wanting to be a hero after the damage she'd already taken, probably would have, except she didn't have the key. The robbers instead ransacked the entire store, making off with an estimated $1.1 million worth of jewelry, up from the initially reported $500,000. Adding an interesting wrinkle to the story was a phone call that Lin's daughter, Eva, received the day before. The call came from someone claiming to be from Amazon, asking about the store's opening hours and mentioning a 2-package delivery. While at the time it might have seemed unusual, in hindsight, the call is really weird, since we've never had Amazon ask when we're going to be home for a delivery. Thankfully, Yuchi Lin survived the violent robbery. Although shaken and traumatized by the incident, she managed to recover and return home after receiving medical treatment. As far as we know, she's doing okay. At the time of this video, police were still investigating and looking for 2 more suspects connected to the robbery, leaving all 4 still at large. If Lin had the safe key, the thieves would have likely cleaned out the entire place, making the loss total. And with the way insurance works, there's no guarantee it would all be covered. But it also would have possibly saved an old woman from further injury. Considering their hefty take, who knows how much more it would have increased. What do you think? Was it better for Lin to not have the key? Romanian gang leader Florian Tudor and his trusted associate Sorinel Constantine Marcu feared their organization would be dismantled after journalist Brian Krebs wrote a 3-part investigative series detailing their criminal operations on his blog. According to the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, the OCCRP, Tudor's organization controlled at least 10% of a $2 billion annual global market for skimmed cards. After running the scam reliably for years, Krebs' article threatened to cost Tudor millions. Florian Tudor, like most gang leaders, is a man who's unafraid of violence, didn't take kindly to being exposed. Tudor wanted revenge, and Marcu was the man who could make it happen. Shortly after the publication, an ominous message from an address tied to a Romanian hacker appeared in Krebs' inbox. It said, quote, "Don't worry, we are coming for you. You and your wife, All is matter of time, amigo. The Riviera Maya gang, led by Florian Tudor, originated in Craiova, Romania, thousands of miles from the tourist hotspot of the Riviera Maya in Mexico. Around 1,000 members were a part of the sophisticated operation. They captured bank card data by installing skimmers on ATMs and hacking into well-known manufacturers' machines to install their custom-designed software. Tudor was a businessman and would spend his profits on luxury apartments in his Romanian hometown, using the money from the gang's profits. Gang members referred to him as El Tiburon, or the Shark. The gang's leader had a murky past, and there are conflicting reports about his life before the Riviera Maya gang. Tudor was born in Craiova, Romania, and became involved in crime at a young age, although he had a clean criminal record. The details of any of his earlier crimes are unknown. When Tudor was in Italy, authorities took him into custody and ultimately deported him, although, again, the details of those charges were unclear. While details about Tudor may be cloudy, one thing is clear. Tudor knew how to run advanced and carefully planned scams. The gang made money from ATM skimming, which involved stealing credit card information by putting a skimming device on an ATM. The device reads inserted credit and debit cards as magnetic stripes, which enables criminals to put the card information on cloned credit and debit cards. Once they've created the cloned cards, they could make purchases and withdraw money while the original card owner was blissfully unaware. What's the easiest way for consumers to discover that their information has been stolen? To make big purchases or withdrawals immediately, thus causing the bank to call the victim and inquire about the charges. Tudor knew that to get away with a heist of this size, he'd have to move slowly and smartly. Not only did the Riviera Maya gang wait months before they withdrew any money from the compromised cards, they also stole small amounts of money. They withdrew $200 from each card, making it far less noticeable to their victims. The operation had many ways to hide the root location of their crimes. When they finally used the stolen card information, they would have members in different countries go to ATMs far from the Riviera Maya region of Mexico and nowhere near where the victims lived. The gang employed skimmers and pullers who operated in places like India, Barbados, Grenada, Paraguay, Indonesia, Brazil, Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan, making it even harder for victims to pinpoint the location of the theft. To seem more legitimate, Tudor and his stepbrother, Adrian Anaescu, set up Top Life Servicios, a Cancun-based company where they could hide their criminal activities. They quickly realized they would run more effectively if they operated their own ATMs. The group purchased machines from well-known manufacturers such as Hyosung and Triton, hacked their processors, and installed custom-designed software to steal people's information without any extra hardware. Now, all the gang needed was placement and credibility. According to the OCCRP, Maltiva, a well-respected Mexican bank, began its business relationship with Top Life Servicios in 2014, an agreement that benefited both parties. Maltiva wanted to branch out into the Riviera Maya area of the Yucatan Peninsula's Caribbean coast. Top Life Servicios wanted to appear as legitimate as possible, and sponsorship from a bank with name recognition printed on the side of their ATMs was exactly what was needed. Despite some red flags, Maltiva continued working with the company. Since local governments weren't enforcing any of the regulations, there was no reason to worry about any silly things like licenses or paperwork. The agreement with Maltiva covered the entire Riviera Maya area, where millions of tourists flock annually to Playa del Carmen, Tulum, and Cancun. Top Life installed their ATMs in hotels, restaurants, boardwalks, and beaches throughout the region and installed the machines without permission from any local governments. By 2017, Top Life operated over 100 Maltiva-branded ATMs, which copied roughly 1,000 cards every month. While the gang only withdrew small amounts of $200 from each card, their monthly income was $20 million. With so much money coming in, the gang had to account for it without raising suspicion. The OCCRP reported that from early 2014 until spring 2019, the criminal network was making $240 million annually and an estimated overall total of around $1.2 billion. In fact, the Riviera Maya gang controlled at least 10% of the $2 billion annual global market for skimmed cards. They concealed their profits through money laundering, using front companies, and purchasing luxury luxury real estate. The shell companies had little or no actual business operations and were a vehicle for the gang to move money across the world. A network of cash mules helped physically transport large sums of money across borders. They traveled in small groups and used different modes of transportation to avoid detection at border crossings while carrying up to $200,000 in cash. Once the money reached its destination, members would deposit it into multiple bank accounts or use it to purchase high-value assets. Gang members also sent associates in countries like the United States cash via Western Union. The recipients would buy luxury goods like high-end cars and Rolex watches that they would resell for clean money. Tudor's Romanian wife, Rebecca Tudor, was the sole shareholder of a construction company called Redelivery, which they used to launder the proceeds from the scheme. Her job was to receive the large sums of cash deposits that mules were carrying and put them into the company, where she would use the money to pay for construction projects, equipment, and materials. Rebecca was using the construction company for a range of projects, such as transforming an ex-government building in Craiova into a luxury apartment complex. Tudor purchased the building with a shell company and transferred ownership to Rebecca. Rebecca used the cash she received from Tudor's associates to pay for the $2.2 million renovation work to the property. She paid workers and suppliers in cash, avoiding a paper trail. They sold the high-end apartments for $110,000 each when the work was over. The gang transferred the proceeds to offshore companies that Tudor controlled. In their efforts to be untraceable, the criminal group buried some of the stolen money, placing it in plastic bags and burying it in places like empty lots, backyards, and even cemeteries. Dealing with money in the States, however, was a different story. Banks often freeze accounts when a card is used overseas without any notification. To stop this from slowing the gang down, they needed to withdraw the money from ATMs located in the United States. Tudor enlisted the help of Filip Serdaru, a Romanian who immigrated to Canada in 1999 after being persecuted in his home country. He was an expert in helping fellow Romanians across the U.S. border, having smuggled at least 295 people from Mexico into the U.S. in 2012 and 2013 alone. Serdaru would fly people into Cancun, the location of the Riviera Maya gang's headquarters, with at least one corrupt immigration agent. They were put on buses to travel to border cities like Tijuana, Mexicali, Ciudad Miguel Alman, where they would stay in hotel rooms rented by the gang. Mexican guides would bring Serdaru's people across the border on foot. Serdaru and his associates made roughly $2,200 for each person they brought across the border. A group of Eastern European men offered an ATM technician $6,000 to install Bluetooth skimming devices in the ATMs. The technician contacted Brian Krebs, a former Washington Post journalist specializing in internet security crimes. The gang planted Bluetooth skimming devices in many of their ATMs, making it even harder to detect them. When Krebs traveled to Mexico, he discovered that many ATMs had a Bluetooth link called Free to Move. The crime syndicate bribed and coerced ATM technicians to install the Bluetooth skimmers and paid technicians to compromise machines at competing ATM providers. The scheme essentially gained them control over Instacash, another Mexican-based ATM company. Krebs wrote a 3-part story on his blog, Krebs on Security, about ATM skimming and mentioned that an Eastern European gang was running the scam. The Instacash tech shared pictures of Instacash's chief deputies and screenshots of card data allegedly gained by the company's various skimming operations. The source was extremely scared for their safety, but stated that Tudor's gang was paying off Mexican authorities. Mexican police never followed up on Krebs' reporting, but the gang temporarily shut down their operations. A furious Tudor ordered members to temporarily extract chips from 10 of the ATMs they ran and 25 to 30 ATMs owned by other companies or banks. Tudor and his associates couldn't hide forever, and it was from within the gang's highest rankings that things began to implode. Constantine Sorinel Marcu was one of Tudor's most trusted men and his former bodyguard, but their friendship was clouded by resentment. Tudor was jealous of Marcu's relationships with women, and Marcu felt he wasn't getting a high enough cut from the business. As tensions were rising, Marcu began sabotaging Instacash's operations by applying superglue to Instacash ATM's pin pads and card acceptance slots. At the same time, Tudor was paranoid that Marcu would go to the police and reveal the gang's entire operation. In June 2018, Marcu was driving in Cancun. One moment he was following a member of Tudor's crew, and the next he had lost his life because of a bullet. Details of Marcu's demise are unclear, though he was likely dispatched somewhere else and moved to his car. Marcu's car was parked in front of a new apartment complex complex built and paid for by Tudor. The news media narrative of what happened avoided placing any blame on Tudor or his gang. However, Marcu's brother, Aurelio Marcu, spoke out against the Mexican authorities. He claimed that Tudor was giving the police large sums of hush money. Mexican authorities helped spin the news media narrative over the crime to avoid generating too much attention. By that point, Tudor was working so closely with police in the area that he was practically in charge. But Tudor's connections couldn't save him when law enforcement finally became suspicious of his operation. Romanian authorities issued a court order for Tudor's arrest on charges of attempted murder and leading a criminal network involved in human trafficking. Tudor was unwilling to go down without a fight, and a physical confrontation broke out when Mexican authorities arrested him. Video footage of Tudor wrestling officials and screaming while they carried him out by his arms and his legs went viral. Police arrested some of Tudor's associates who allegedly tried to assault at least one police officer during the exchange. Maltiva claimed to have been entirely unaware of any scam carried out on their branded machines, despite Krebs on Security exposing the gang in September of 2015. Krebs detailed how the ATM industry and law enforcement were being bribed and coerced by Tudor's associates while Maltiva did nothing. The bank stated they hadn't dealt with unusual complaints and denied any knowledge of Intacash. Maltiva also said that they audited their machines, but that statement was likely untrue. Despite allegations of fraud and corruption involving Maltiva's branded machines, they continued working with Top Life for a considerable time. They even signed a new agreement with Maltiva in 2019 to provide ATMs for the bank's customers. Maltiva didn't end its relationship with Top Life until Tudor's arrest and extradition to Romania. They made a statement emphasizing that the bank wasn't involved in any illegal activity and that Maltiva was also a victim of the ATM fraud. The operation went much further than just the bank's involvement. Jorge de la Peña Ruiz de Chavez, the leader of Mexico's Green Party, was removed from office after being accused of receiving money from the Romanian ATM skimming gang. The Mexican Ministry of Finance seized 79 bank accounts as part of their ongoing investigation into the criminal network, and one of those accounts belonged to de la Peña. He cooperated with authorities but denied any involvement in the group. De la Peña wasn't the only person to have their bank account frozen by the Mexican Ministry of Finance. Public figures like the former Secretary of Public Security of Cancun, Jose Luis Jonathan Young, his father, Jose Luis Young Cruz, former governors of Quintana Roo, the owner of the Cuequi newspaper, Jose Alberto Gomez Alvarez, and the notary, Nain Diaz Medina, also lost access to their accounts during the investigation. In May 2020, the Mexican daily newspaper Reforma reported that Tudor and his associates enjoyed legal probation from a top anti-corruption official in the Mexican Attorney General's office. Florian Tudor is currently in a Mexican prison, fighting his extradition to Romania to face more charges. We've all heard about horror stories from vacationers visiting foreign countries. Tourists always seem like easy marks since they typically have large amounts of disposable cash ripe for the taking. The scary thing about the Maya Riviera gang was that legitimacy with which they operated. Their ATMs had a trusted brand, there was no evidence of tampering, and the sums being removed were relatively small so they would escape notice. The lessons here are to use the chip readers whenever possible, since the skimmers copy the magnetic strip. Some also suggest setting up a separate travel account to limit the damage should your card become compromised. Even while Tudor is in custody, his businesses are as strong as ever, which begs the question, why continue risking jail time? Florian Tudor is reminiscent of Dr. Evil, not understanding that he's making plenty of money through legitimate means. At the end of the day, a shark is always going to be a shark. What are some of the craziest and most daring robberies? Let's get started with number 5. Jugging gone wrong. Joseph Harrell has been accused of robbing and injuring Hyung Trong in a jugging robbery. The mother of 3 was paralyzed by the incident, and Harrell is currently locked up. Jugging robberies are robberies carried out by someone who stalks their victim from a bank or a high-end store and then robs them of their money or items bought. And that's precisely what happened. Harrell had trailed his victim from a bank to a shopping center for about 24 miles. He then body slammed her into the concrete and stole about $4,300 in cash that she had just withdrawn. When Harrell committed this robbery, he was out on bond for a charge of unlawfully carrying a weapon. After doing this crazy crime, he got into a car driven by his getaway driver, Zanika Woods, and left the area. The attack left his victim badly injured. She suffered serious injuries that resulted in paralysis below her arms. According to her doctors, there's a real chance that she may never be able to walk again. This wasn't Harrell's first jugging. Just a few weeks before this crime, Harrell stole a woman's purse. The woman's husband tracked the AirPods in the purse to his home. After tracking him, he called the police to come and intervene. However, before the police could arrive, Harrell threatened the couple and made them leave. Harrell was arrested but subsequently released on bond. When Harrell was eventually arrested, the court held him on a $100,000 bond after a controversial decision to slash it in half from $200,000. While in prison, waiting for his bail conditions to be perfected, Harrell had a lot to say about his victim. He mocked her and laughed at the prospect of going to jail. According to jailhouse phone call recordings, Harrell said that the court would probably try to give him the maximum sentence of 20 years and that his victim would be better off moving on with her life. Harrell also took issue with the success of his victim's GoFundMe. By the time he was in jail, the fund had already raised over $200,000 for her treatment. For some reason, Harrell believed this was already enough compensation for her and that she should abandon her search for justice. He's a sensible young man with a strong sense of right and wrong, obviously. Lastly, Dr. Harrell expressed his totally valid medical opinion that she would certainly regain mobility in her limbs within the year. One wonders when Harrell acquired a medical degree to be able to know that for sure. Maybe all that time he'll be spending in prison will let him finally complete his medical degree. Number 4. Fast food, fast robbery. A Queensland teenager, Danica Diane Appleton, has been accused of robbing a string of fast food restaurants alongside 2 male co-conspirators. According to police, the gang of 3 would enter fast food outlets and then rob both staff and customers of their cash and valuables. Some of the fast food outlets they robbed include 2 Hungry Jacks and several other unnamed stores. CCTV footage of the robbery shows Miss Appleton holding a large brown knife which was presumably used to threaten customers. Unfortunately for Appleton, she was good at robbing people, but wasn't particularly great at hiding from people. After executing search warrants on suspected properties, the police eventually found Appleton. Not only did they find her, but they also found blue walkie-talkies, a Spider-Man mask, a gold-colored Holden Commodore, basically an Australian Buick, but it drives upside down, like everything in Australia, and another stolen car. According to CCTV evidence, these were all items used by the robbers to commit their crimes. After her arrest, Appleton applied for bail based on the fact that she had no previous criminal convictions. She also argued that she had professional ties to the area as she was due to resume a government call center job soon. While her lack of a record weighed heavily on the judge's mind, the fact that she was running around menacing people in a Spider-Man mask with a large knife weighed even heavier. The judge felt that the allegations were very serious and not just the besmirching of Spider-Man's good reputation. And there was an elevated risk that Appleton would skip bail. So the application was denied. Appleton was charged with 10 counts of armed robbery, 22 counts of deprivation of liberty, 2 counts of unlawful use of a motorcycle, and 3 counts of entering premises with intent. Weird. Whenever we have to deal with a call center, we feel like we're being menaced by a knife-wielding Spider-Man, so this story isn't all that shocking. Number 3. Shark Heist. A 6-inch horned shark named Miss Helen was stolen from an aquarium by a crew of 3 thieves who said they wanted to give her a better life. The saga of the stolen shark started about a month before the animal was taken from its aquarium. One of the thieves went to the aquarium where the shark lived and told the staff that he was from the company that supplied them with salt. But he wasn't with the company. He was doing recon, Ocean's 11 style. The pretend salt dealer explained that his company had supplied contaminated salt, so he needed to inspect the facility to ensure things were in their proper working order. The staff at the aquarium believed this poser and gave him a tour of the entire building. Unbeknownst to them, the fake inspector was using this tour to plan the shark heist that he and his crew would commit just a month later. The clandestine investigation of the aquarium would bear fruit, as the heist itself was relatively hitch-free. It was carried out by 3 suspects who came to the facility pretending to be regular guests. One of them was a woman who had a baby stroller. Once in the aquarium, they went to a section of the exhibition where guests were allowed to touch the animals and scoop the shark out of the water with a net. Afterward, the CCTV captured 2 of the suspects carrying the shark to the back room that they had scoped out a month before. In the back room, they dumped a container filled with bleach in the filtration system of the aquarium and then put the shark in the empty container and added water. Afterward, they carried the container out, put Miss Helen in the baby stroller, and made a dash for it. One of the staff at the aquarium noticed what the thieves were doing and tried to confront them, but they weren't allowed allowed to search the car the crew came in. So the staff did the sensible thing. They called the police, and the police tracked the getaway vehicle down. After tracking the vehicle, the police arrived at the residence of one Anthony Shannon. Shannon was very welcoming and invited the cops into his home. Inside the home was a very large pool filled with all manner of aquatic animals, and in that pool was also Miss Helen, the horned shark that the aquarium was searching for. When asked about the shark, Shannon tried to hoodwink the police by providing a forged receipt for its purchase. The cops didn't buy this explanation, and he was promptly arrested and charged to court alongside his accomplices. After Shannon was arrested, a few things were made very clear. The first was that Shannon had no intention of selling the shark, as you might have assumed. Instead, he believed that he was rescuing the shark from the aquarium. Shannon had believed that animals were being mistreated in the facility, and the reconnaissance mission he had carried out before the heist proved that to him. According to the aquarium authorities, when Shannon posed as an official from their salt provider, that's probably when he made his incorrect conclusions. Another thing that was made clear was that Shannon wasn't a novice shark keeper. He knew how to take care of the horned shark, and Miss Helen even thrived while in his pool. The aquarium authorities were so shocked that he had prepared so adequately for his heist. In addition to that, Shannon claims he isn't a thief at all, but an activist, and he was merely trying to save the shark. Be that as it may, Shannon has now been charged with theft of property. Number 2. The Superfan. A Kansas City Chiefs superfan, Xavier Babudar, has been arrested by the police on armed robbery charges. The fan, who had the handle @Chiefsaholic on Twitter, was a rather popular fan of the Kansas City Chiefs. He often showed up to games wearing a wolf's costume, which increased his general popularity. According to the fans tracking the issue, this superfan committed the robbery while he was on his way to a Kansas City Chiefs game in another city, which doesn't make him that much of a superfan if you ask us. Making a detour to rob a bank while on your way to another city to watch your team play isn't exactly the smartest move. The police report that he robbed a Tulsa teachers credit union, and workers inside the bank called the police on him as he was about to leave. Unfortunately for this superfan, his escape wasn't that super, as the police intercepted him with his weapon and the cash as he left the area. Babudar was held on a $200,000 bond and requested a public defender. He's now looking to slash that bond to $50,000. However, there's a complication with that plan. The state of Oklahoma doesn't provide public defenders for people who can post their bond, and our superfan plans to seek a reduction to his bail so that he can post it. This means that Babudar's request for a public defender cannot go through, since it seems he has the means to post a $50,000 bail. While requesting a public defender, Babudar claimed that he had been homeless since 2020 and was unemployed as well. However, Babudar's social media accounts tell a different story. They tell a story of a big Kansas City Chiefs fan who can afford to travel to see games and who bets huge amounts of money on the games he goes to see. In one of his posts, Babudar claimed that he managed multiple warehouses throughout the Midwest, but for some reason, he couldn't pay a lawyer to defend him and had been homeless. He was also able to afford to attend a charity where one ticket cost over $1,000. As you might expect for someone who would do something like this, Babudar also has a somewhat of a rap sheet. He had 2 violations from 2017 for trespassing, obstructing legal process, and failing to have a current car tag. Number 1. No Flex Zone. The Rolex Rippers are a gang of 6 thugs who stole watches and jewelry from victims while armed with knives and machetes. The gang carried out their crimes with a stolen BMW that had false license plates. Their modus operandi was to go after victims and threaten to physically harm them with their knives and bigger knives. Police were able to quickly track down the gang through evidence provided by some of the victims. After the victims reported the Rippers, officers found the BMW described by the victims and then gave chase. Of course, the BMW's blinkers weren't used one time during the chase, which is so typical. The 2 individuals in the Benz were able to escape on foot, but they left certain valuables behind, which allowed the police to identify the pair who fled the car and other members of the crew. The police also recovered a large machete from the vehicle. This machete may have been something that the gang used to scare their victims. They also found a tracksuit that matched CCTV evidence of crimes the gang committed. Once police recovered the phones, they went through all of them and discovered photos of other members of the gang celebrating their thefts by wearing the watches stolen from their victims. Forensic data and a slew of cell site data also linked the 6 gang members to the crimes. The members of the gang were charged with counts of robbery, possessing an offensive weapon used in an attack, as well as dangerous driving, probably because of the blinkers. They were all found guilty by the court and will be sentenced at a later date. Unfortunately, none of the property stolen by the gang has been recovered. It's like the headline writes itself: reckless Rolex Rolex rippers ruthlessly robbed rich folks with razor-sharp rapiers, but were ultimately rounded up and rightfully reprimanded. What are some of the most daring robberies? Let's get right to it and start with number 5. Watch this! 2 Las Vegas women, Nikki Grandel and Stacy Johnson, targeted and robbed a man they met on the Caesars Palace casino floor. Grandel and Johnson were socializing with their victim when they convinced him to take them to his hotel room at Caesars Palace. But it wasn't long after they entered the room before he realized he was missing $6,500 and a Rolex watch. The man kept his valuable belongings in a small bag, and after discovering it was empty, he confronted the women. Grandel and Johnson did what anyone would do when wrongfully accused, fled the room and ran into the stairwell. But the women couldn't move faster than the Las Vegas police. The victim immediately reported the theft, and officers tracked down Grandel and Johnson using the hotel's surveillance footage and the victim's description. Police arrested the pair moments later and charged them with grand larceny. Authorities had to conduct an extensive search to find the Rolex, resorting to an X-ray examination where they discovered Grandel had placed the luxury watch inside her body to conceal it. And by body, you probably know what we mean. The one only women have. Additionally, Johnson stuffed the cash inside her pants. Grandel and Johnson's actions might seem extreme, but they were far from the only people to conduct this type of criminal operation at a casino. Cassidy Rain Paris was at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Hollywood, Florida, when she approached a man at the casino's elevators. After telling the man he seemed tired and stressed, she offered to go up to his room to give him a massage. The man accepted the offer, and the pair went to his room. During the massage, Paris ordered him to remove his clothing and kissed him. She suddenly developed chest pain and excused herself to go to the bathroom. Within minutes, the victim heard his room door close and discovered his belongings were missing. Paris stole a Patek Philippe watch worth $50,000, $10,000 in cash, and $6,100 in poker chips. Paris's scheme was well thought out. After luring the man to his room, she used a diversionary tactic to distract him so she could rob him. Except she underestimated how easy it would be to track her down. Similarly to Grandel and Johnson, surveillance video captured Paris sprinting down the hall and driving away in a red car. Police located the GPS tracker on the red car she used to flee the scene. They apprehended Paris 4 miles east of the casino at a Days Inn motel and charged her with a second-degree felony for theft. So wait, we can't just trust any random women we meet named Nikki, Stacy, or Cassidy? Number 4. Gourley's 5. A gang of 5 robbers carried out a jewelry heist at Danielle Jewelers in Birmingham, England. The gang stole a highways maintenance truck and smashed it into the storefront, narrowly missing a staff member. 3 of the 4 robbers pulled a smash and grab. They barged into the store and smashed glass display cabinets with sledgehammers, then grabbed the jewelry and stuffed it into their sports bags. The 4th gang member stayed in one of the group's 3 vehicles, with the 5th kept the crowd at bay, waving an axe. The gang used a black Land Rover Discovery, a white Toyota Hilux, and a black Toyota Corolla for the raid. They parked the Land Rover and Toyota Corolla to block both sides of the ride of the jewelers and reversed the Hilux into the store. The 5 men fled the scene in the Land Rover and Hilux, abandoning the Corolla at the scene. Surveillance footage caught the group leaving the vehicles nearby and climbing into a stolen Audi TTS and a BMW 420. Despite spending weeks planning their operation, security cameras captured the entire robbery, and many concerned onlookers watched it occur. The ringleader, John Gourley, attempted to sell a stolen bangle for $1,850 at Birmingham's Jewelry Quarter 2 hours after the raid, 3 miles from the jewelry store. Unfortunately for him, surveillance footage captured the entire interaction. Detectives used surveillance footage from nearby businesses and a witness's cell phone footage. They linked Gourley to the robbery by his fingerprints on the store's sale sheet. Another member, Hassan Zulukar, bought tape and pads at a nearby auto parts store, which which he used to put false number plates on their getaway cars. Authorities discovered he stole the Land Rover after they recovered backings to the pads that Zulekar left inside the vehicle, which were covered in his fingerprints. Additionally, they tied the rest of the group to the theft through fingerprints, clothing, and tags from the stolen jewelry they found in one of the members' homes. Officers arrested all 5 members of the group and charged them with conspiracy to rob and possess an offensive firearm. Birmingham Crown Court conducted a 4-week trial and found the group guilty. Their sentences ranged from 16 years to 12, reaching a combined total of 72 years. See, this is what happens when you get pulled in for one last big score. It never works. Number 3. King Crab. David Sabile is accused of conning seafood distributors out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Allegedly, Sabile pretended to work at a grocery store and created fake email accounts to make it seem like they belonged to multiple Safeway grocery store employees. He used the accounts to deceive Arctic Foods, a San Francisco seafood distributor, out of $700,000. Sabile used a false name and fake trucking company to plan 2 pickups and had rental documents that tied him to the trucks. After collecting the second shipment of crab, the owner of Arctic Foods reached out to Sabile to discuss being overcharged. When the owner couldn't reach Sabile, they contacted Safeway, who revealed Sabile was not employed by them. The distributor owner informed authorities of Sabile's actions, who began to watch him. Sabile planned another shipment, but employees loaded cheaper seafood rather than king or snow crab into the truck. Police pulled over the truck driver and arrested him on counts of forgery and possession of a fraudulent bill. They found crab from Arctic Foods that matched one of Sabile's alleged shipments being sold below market value in Florida. When Sabile coordinated a 4th shipment from Arctic Foods, authorities placed position tracking devices on the packaging. The shellfish ended up at a junk removal service in Florida, with Sabile likely unloading the product when he realized it wasn't king crab. Sabile booked a one-way ticket to Colombia, but Miami police arrested him before he could board the plane. Sabile faces charges of bank fraud, grand theft, and counts of forgery and possession of a fraudulent bill. But this wasn't the first time Sabile committed criminal activity in the seafood industry. Sabile posed as a seafood buyer in Florida and Alabama, where he would contact suppliers and claim he was buying large quantities of shrimp, fish, and lobster for a cruise line. Sabile arranged to receive the seafood at cold storage facilities in Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, and Volusia counties, where he paid for the shipments with counterfeit checks. He also didn't pay a line of credit extended to him on at least one occasion. Law enforcement caught Sabile attempting to buy $60,000 of shrimp from a seafood wholesaler. He was allegedly responsible for $200,000 in losses to seafood businesses in Florida and Alabama, and for this scheme, charged with bank fraud and grand theft. Number 2. Romanian skimming. The Riviera Maya gang specialized in skimming ATMs and stealing from tourists in Playa del Carmen and other nearby tourist areas in Mexico. The gang used skimming devices to obtain their victims' credit card information and copied their details onto blank cards to withdraw cash from ATMs worldwide. They likely began operating in 2012 and have targeted thousands of tourists. Florian Tudor is the leader of the Riviera Maya gang, which has around 1,000 members. He's a businessman from Craiova, Romania, known as El Tiburon, or the Shark, among other gang members. Romanian authorities believe Tudor ordered fellow gang members to threaten, blackmail, beat up, and even bump off the gang's enemies, including former members who fell out with him. ATM skimming involves stealing credit card information by placing a skimming device on the machine that reads the card's magnetic stripe when inserted. Criminals use the information to create cloned credit and debit cards, which they then use to withdraw money and make purchases. The Riviera Mayan gang took ATM skimming up a level, buying ATMs from well-known manufacturers, hacking their processors, and installing custom-designed software to steal bank card data. Their operation was far more sophisticated than the average criminals. They waited months before withdrawing money from compromised cards and almost always used them in ATMs far from where they were stolen or where the victims lived. The gang's skimmers and pulls operated worldwide, from India to Barbados to South Korea to Brazil and everywhere in between, making it almost impossible for victims to connect a theft to their Mexican vacation vacation. Tudor and his stepbrother Adrian Anichescu set up Top Life Servicio company in Cancun. It gave the gang the appearance of legitimacy while covering their criminal activities. Quickly, the gang decided it would skim more effectively if it had its own ATMs. So they went out and purchased some from well-known manufacturers like Triton and Hyosung. They hacked their ATM's processors and installed custom-designed software to capture card data. Additionally, the gang had an agreement with Maltiva, a respected Mexican bank, to brand their ATMs with the bank's logo. Top Life operated over 100 Maltiva-branded ATMs across the Riviera Maya and other popular tourist locations in Mexico by 2017. Wealthy tourists use those machines daily, innocently sticking their credit or debit cards for their information to be stolen. Each machine copied roughly 1,000 cards monthly, from which the gang would withdraw $200. Combining all the machines they operated, the gang's monthly income was $20 million. Top Life invested the money in Mexican real estate, such as the construction of their headquarters, a multi-story villa with a rooftop swimming pool, and an elevator built on land in the prime area of Cancun. Under Tudor's leadership, the gang laundered the funds. Most of Tudor's aides were Romanian and would withdraw small sums from stolen cards in Mexico, then send the money to Romania in cash or through Western Union. Tudor's relatives and business partners would invest the profits in luxury real estate that they legally sold to cover up any criminal activity. Despite running a sophisticated and carefully planned operation, journalist Brian Krebs received a tip from a technician that worked for a Mexican ATM company that a gang was offering $6,000 to install Bluetooth skimming devices in ATMs. Krebs traveled to Mexico to further investigate the potential criminal activity and discovered many ATMs had a Bluetooth link called Free to Move. His trip prompted Krebs to write a 3-part story on his blog about ATM skimming, where he mentioned an Eastern European gang was behind the scam. Tudor was furious and ordered members to temporarily extract chips from 10 ATMs they owned and 25 to 30 ATMs belonging to other companies or banks. Mexican police never followed up on the revelations in Krebs' articles, but the gang temporarily shut down their operations anyway. Although the gang avoided criminal charges, Tudor was beginning to unravel. His relationship with one of his most trusted men, Constantin Sorinel Marcu, deteriorated. Tudor was envious of Marcu's relationships with women, and Marcu wanted a higher cut than he was getting from the business. After a heated exchange over WhatsApp in May 2015, Tudor instructed all gang members to cut ties with Marcu. In April 2018, 3 gang members attacked Marcu. 2 months later, Marcu passed away. Not only did his passing unleash a war with Marcu's family and allies, but it put the Riviera Maya gang on law enforcement's radar. In May 2021, Mexican authorities arrested Tudor following years of investigations by Mexican and Romanian authorities. His arrest was in response to an extradition request from Romania, where he could face charges of organized crime, extortion, and attempted murder. Number 1. Partners in crime. Husband and wife duo Emmanuel and Kara Williams committed bank robberies in Florida and Alabama between December 2012 and November 2013. The couple made little effort to cover their tracks, using similar methods in each robbery. Emmanuel would enter the bank wearing an afro wig or a hat and pass a note with block lettering to the bank teller, demanding money. The pair robbed 15 banks within a short time, with 7 of those robberies occurring between December 2012 and February 2013. 6 more robberies happened between August and October 2013, and at least 2 being only a few days apart. The amount they took ranged from $1,623 to $8,438 per bank, and their net total was $54,750. Onlookers and surveillance cameras caught the couple driving away in high-end sports utility vehicles. In an August 28th robbery, a nearby business's security camera captured Emmanuel getting into a black 2011 Mercedes-Benz GLK 350. Another camera filmed them using a white Mustang in an August 22nd robbery. Using flashy cars in crimes? Wonder if that'll blow back on them. The FBI linked both vehicles to Kara Williams after requesting video from the Florida Department of Transportation Turnpike Authority to track the license plate number of the Mercedes to her. FBI agents conducted physical surveillance of the couple's Tampa apartment, where they had a front row seat into the duo's operation. There was a breakthrough in the case after the couple targeted a mid-Florida credit union, after which FBI agents tracked Emmanuel's cell phone activity to link his location relocation to cell towers during the dates and times of the couple's crimes. They also used his social media photos to identify a scar on Emmanuel's left thumb, which he covered with a cloth on his hand to hide from the cameras in bank surveillance videos. 10 days after their first bank robbery, Kara gave birth around December 15th, 2012. At the time, Kara was on maternity leave from her job at JP Morgan Chase Bank. Kara also took sick days corresponding to bank robberies in Tampa and Auburndale. The FBI's investigation into the couple uncovered the couple's criminal activities, resulting in the pair's arrest. Kara and Emmanuel were charged with conspiracy to obstruct, delay, or affect commerce by robbery, each carrying a potential maximum 20-year prison sentence. Jeez, Kara, if you hated your job so much, you could have just quit. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section what you'd rather do. Be 20 years older but $3 million richer, or 20 years younger and in debt 50 grand.